Welcome back. This is probably part of the show that Matt loves the best. Looking back at a big handicap race, dissecting the form, looking at the ratings, and I don't know how we managed to get every horse on this graph. To be honest with you, Matt, normally it's 5 weeks. I mean, we had a 4-runner race last week. This time we've got about 18 runners.
No.
Let's take a look at that. We'll put the screen up. This will show all the finishing positions, and we'll leave it up there for a little while.
Yeah.
Right, this is the result of the Betfair Hurdle. I mean, I've watched it over 4 or 5 times. One or two horses that stood out for me, but give us the form and how you saw it, Matt.
Yeah, OK. Well, what we've got here is the first one, how I started handicapping this race was actually through the second horse of Philip Hobbs, because obviously he was second or third in last year's Betfair Hurdle, and I used him as the mark. He was obviously behind Splash of Ginge. Now, last year I allotted him a mark of 155. Now, there's no reason to believe that he hasn't performed to the same standard. So I went in originally to use him as the mark of 155. So we have Violet Dancer coming out at official hand. These are on the BHA rating there. That is the British Horse Racing Authority. This was before the race. So that was 132. I've evaluated the race to the value of 149. The second horse 155. Now, interestingly, Activel was in third. Now, we knew plenty about Activel because, of course, he ran in the Ladbroke at Ascot. Now, anyone who tuned in to see my the preview of the Betfair Hurdle, I had Activel at the time 154. Now, with the mark of the second horse of 155, I've now readjusted Activel to 156. Now, you were asking, well, where's the improvement come from? It was his first run of the season in the Ladbroke, so I'm suggesting that he's improved £2 for the run in fourth. Now, there's a big gap back to the fourth horse. It was at Calypto, about 9 lengths. Have got Calypto running an official mark of 143, value raters mark 147.
So
now,
can I just interrupt you there, Matt? We know going back to, I think it's December 2013, that these Activel and Calypto, who are probably the best horses in the race based on the weight, right? Calypto beat it by 3.5 lengths. So I was saying
Sure.
that they beat it easily. So what's happened? Has Calypto gone backwards, or has Activel the improver?
I think when we look at this race, is that I'm not crabbing the first 3 home here at all. You know what it proved at Newbury at the weekend was horses were not coming off the pace. I mean, we've seen an example when a David Pipes went off in front and never seen it. Now, the first 3 home, Violet Dancer pressed the leader. The second horse close up, Activel in touch. Now, when you start looking in behind, all the other horses are held up, including Calypto, who for me got out of his ground. Now, as you've just pointed out there, on the form, off level weights which they met each other, Calypto had the right to be finishing 3 1/4 length in front of Activel, but is now 9 lengths behind. So you can argue, and I think it is the case, that Calypto had performed on the day £14, which is a stone, under that form. And I think, as I pointed out in the Betfair Hurdle preview last week about Calypto, was if there was something that I was going to crab him on, it was the fact that he's a strong travelling horse, but when he actually comes off the bridle, he doesn't, accelerate away. And I was disappointed from the beginning of the race to see Sam Twiston-Davies at the back of the field, because I was thinking to myself, when you've seen the likes of Activel, who's obviously a 2.5 miler, when he's up in touch, they're not going to be stopping, and that's what's happened to me. Violet Dancer and Activel, they've really finished strongly, and I think Calypto's done very well to finish where he has. But of course, from a jockey's point of view, Sam Twiston-Davies has really asked Calypto to quicken twice, and there's not many horses that can actually do that. There's a few eye catches in the race. I mean, I like the 5th horse in particular. Now,
A 6.
I know you do, and I can see why you do. But the 5th horse, Jolly's Cracked It, Harry Fry, Nick Schofield. Now, these was right at the back of the field. He was only one who made a lot of ground from the back of the field when he stayed on from 2 out. He's very interesting. The 6th horse, Arzel, that if you want to make your case for that.
Yeah, well, the only reason why, I mean, it was hampered by a faller, and went right back to the last place, and ended up being finishing 6th.
Yeah,
I mean, this all leads me, because I was looking through the form. Liami Surge, it ran against that, got beat by that, and Jolly's Cracked It, I think, got beat by that as well. So
there's
that
also
points towards the Supreme Hurdle, and I know Liami Surge is one of the favourites there, but that form to me is quite strong.
Yeah, absolutely. Arzel, I mean, to be honest, with such a big field, I didn't pay too much attention to Arzel until you mentioned it, and I did go and have a look. And what's really interesting is Arzel ran in a race behind Jolly Allen at Kempton
that's the one. Sorry, you're right, absolutely.
was in third. So that gives...
But Johnny Allen, in terms of Liam Surge, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Johnny's cracked it. That's
Yeah.
right. They're both happy for it.
For what happened to Arzau, it almost looked to me, I mean, it had a £7 claimer on, so sometimes I think the claimers are giving up when they're actually riding. They've just got that style about them. But it almost looked to me like, Paul O'Brien, it actually accepted it. You know, he was at the back of the field, he made that hamper and he thought it would come in, but he's still running on past beaten horses. He's a very interesting horse for me. In summary to this race, the first three home, I mean, Activel, there's no entries at the moment for Violet Dancer. Activel in third has got, I think, is probably going to be aimed at something like the Coral Cup. He's finished in the places again. The handicap is going to have his say again. He might just turn out to be very vulnerable, even when he goes up and trip, because of these two-placed efforts.
Yeah, I was going to say Activel, on watching it, looked like it was, running on and staying on a little bit more.
Yeah.
At the end, I mean, there were a few there. I mean, we talked about leading from the front. We have Chieftain Choice, who was up with Violet Dancer. He fell, I think, maybe on the far side. On tour was fourth to about 2 out and faded. And Balgari, the pipe horse, was leading, was up there free and fell back. So I think that the form of the Violet Dancer there, I know it's only carrying 10 stone 9. It's only a 5-year-old, but I think that was pretty decent because I think they were going at a strong pace. And it's all right them coming back, but you have to stay out there. And Chaltanian is never going to improve at that age. I don't know how strong do you think this form is, because Chaltanian is sort of a consistent horse, but not a spectacular one, is it?
Well, he was £6 higher than his race with being placed in the Betfair Hurdle last year. So I think on that, you take quite a strong view of last year's race, which is called Splash of Gins. That's been performing great this year. Irish Saint was in there, all these horses. So I think you can take a lot from the first three. My concern for him, though, is that when you've got Violet Dancer winning 3 lengths, a length back, and then 9 lengths back to the fourth horse, that handicap is probably going to take a severe view of the first three. And I think they're going to be vulnerable, even with the likes of Actival going up in trip. I think he's going to be punished by the handicapper. I think horses in behind your Calyptos, your Jollies Cracked It, your Arzaus, even your On Tour. I think horses in this race that were held up, I really do think that give them another chance, because I do think they were handicapped. I just think on the day, and it just goes to show, in these big races, I mean, they went some pace, didn't they? Yeah,
absolutely.
And if horses don't come back, you've absolutely had it. And I think, in summary, I think it's a good renewal. I didn't think, years ago, this race was very much seen as perhaps a champion hurdle trial, real classy horses in the race going forward. Is there any of that calibre on here?
Yeah, My Tent or Yours,
Absolutely.
Sarkanda.
We haven't got that here.
No.
We haven't got it here. But what I would say to people is, do put the likes of Calypto. Don't give up. And if there's one thing I learned, I got involved with Calypto the weekend, and I changed my mind a little bit when Hawks High didn't win. One thing I've learned, and that's a great thing about what I do, I learn every day with racing, and when you do your money, was don't just think horses are going to come there on the day being absolutely match fit, because when you come in these races, you need a run. Calypto didn't have a run. Activel did have a run. And I think that's probably the difference of Calypto in the closing stage. So from now on, in my, I will certainly be backing horses for the nature of these big races. Just make sure they've had a run. I think
it was quite tricky on Saturday, because there was a number of fallers at Newbury. I mean, we'll go on to the preview of the other chase race in a while, but there was actually a few fallers in this race as well. And it's very hard to make a judgment, because some of the horses were hampered. We talked about Arzel being hampered, but Chieftain Choice was going well.
He was a long way from home. He fell at the fifth.
But he was going with Violet Dancer, wasn't he?
He was up he was up with the pace. So you thought if he could maintain the gallop, I agree, he'd be up there. But I think it's a very dangerous thing to start assuming that he would have kept up that gallop. It was too far out for me. Okay, looking at that race, we've got about a minute left. Who do you take out of that race for future events? Because obviously people watching this will want to back winners. So do they go with Violent Dancer next time, or do they look for Activel to step up in trip? From this big field, is there maybe two horses from this race that you take out and think, right, I'm going to be on those next time? I think horses will be interesting. I won't be giving up on Calypto. I think they'd have learned plenty from holding him up and having been more prominent.
You think that's what they'll do next time?
I think they'll have him right prominent. I think they realise that the mistake they've made there.
They just let him get away, you think?
Yeah, and just let him bowl along in front. Arzel I take out of it, and Jolly's Cracked It as well.
Okay, well that's the review. Don't forget, you can ask us any questions that you want. We'll put up that at the end of the programme. We're going to take a very short break, because obviously there was a fascinating chase that took place at Newbury. We've got Sire Degrugi was running a Mr. Mole. We'll see you after this break.